Okay, so this is the Daf Yomi for July 2nd, 2025. We're in Avodah Zarah 14. This is really an awesome tractate. Just like Sanhedrin, this is one to visit multiple times in your life and get to know. There's a lot of amazing things in here. I feel like I can't even touch off on many of them. There's so many things that I would like to spend videos on, but I wish I had the time. Here we go. The Gemara says, the Gemara analyzes the terms in the Mishnah. So what is the meaning of it's terubalin? This is the plant known as Torah-Centered. And the Gemara raises a contradiction from a Braita. The sages added to the list of plants whose use is prohibited during the sabbatical year. Alexine, I guess that's how we pronounce it. It's terubalin, muhsasin, benot shuach. And if it would enter your mind to say that it's terubalin is terenita, is there terenita that is subject to the halachot of the sabbatical year? That's a question. The Gemara explains, but didn't we learn in Braita that this is the principle? Anything that has a root and grows is subject to the halachot of the sabbatical year, and anything that does not have a root is not subject to the halachot of the sabbatical year. If so, Terenita, which has no roots, is not subject to the halachot of the sabbatical year, and therefore it cannot be identified as it's terubalin. So rather, Rav Safra says, what is it's terubalin? It's terubalin. It is the fruit of the cedar tree. And similarly, when Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael, he said that Rabbi Elazar says, it's terubalin is the fruit of the cedar tree. So the Mishnah includes benot shuach among the items one may not sell to a Gentile. So Rabba Bar Bar Chana says that Rabbi Yochanan says these are white figs. The Mishnah states, and petotarot, Rabbi Bar Bar Chana says that Rabbi Yochanan says this is not another type of fruit. Rather, the Mishnah here taught that the sale of the various fruits listed in the Mishnah is prohibited only when they are sold with their stems, not if they have been pruned. So the Mishnah taught that selling frankincense to Gentiles is prohibited. Rabbi Yitzchak says that Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says the Mishnah is referring specifically to pure frankincense, which is used as incense for objects of idol worship. A sage taught, and with regard to all these items whose sale is prohibited, one may sell to Gentiles a large bundle of merchandise, as it is clear that the Gentile intends to sell the merchandise rather than sacrifice it to his object of idol worship. And how much does a bundle weigh? Such a bundle weigh? So Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera explained, for the purposes of this halacha, no bundle is less than the weight of 300 dinars. The Gemara raises a difficulty, but let us be concerned lest the buyer go and sell these items to another Gentile, and they sacrifice them. Abai said in response, this scenario is certainly possible, but we are commanded only not to, quote, place a stumbling block before the blind. Leviticus 19:14. That is, one may not be the direct cause of a Gentile's idol worship. We are not commanded not to place a stumbling block before one who may subsequently place it before the blind. The Mishnah teaches, and it is prohibited to sell a white rooster to a Gentile. Rabbi Yonah says that Rabbi Zarah says that Rav Zavid says the following rule. And there are those who teach merely that Rabbi Yonah says that Rabbi Zarah says. If a Gentile says, who has a rooster, without specifying any particular type, it is permitted to sell him a white rooster. But if he says, who has a white rooster, it is prohibited to sell him a white rooster. The Gemara raises an objection to this opinion. We learned in the Mishnah that Rabbi Yehuda says he may sell a white rooster to a Gentile provided that it is sold along with other types of roosters. What are the circumstances? If we say that the Gentile says, who has a white rooster? Who has a white rooster? In that case, one may not provide him with a white rooster, even if it is sold along with other roosters, as the Gentile specified that he wants a white rooster. Rather, it is not referring to a case where the Gentile says who has a rooster, without mentioning a white one. So even so, according to Rabbi Yehuda, if he sells him a white rooster along with other roosters, then yes, it is permitted, but selling only a white rooster by itself is not permitted. And one can infer that according to the first Tana, who prohibits the sale of the white rooster, one may not sell him a white rooster even if it is sold along with other roosters. This does not accord with the statement of Rabbi Yonah, who rules that if the Gentile says who has a rooster without specifying any particular type, it is permitted to sell him even a white rooster. So Rav Nachman Bar Yitzhak said, the Mishnah is not discussing the case of a Gentile who asked for a rooster without specifying its color, as everyone agrees that in such a situation it is permitted to sell him a white rooster. Rather, here we are dealing with a case where the Jew had several different roosters, and the Gentile says, pointing to a different roosters, sell me this one and that one. And one of the roosters he chose was white. So the idea, it's not like if there's a black rooster, it would change to that, as well, or, a gray rooster. Specifically, the white rooster we learned in another daf was they were used in idol worship specifically. So the Gemara notes that this explanation is also taught in a Braita. Rabbi Yehuda said, when is selling a white rooster prohibited? It is prohibited when the Gentile said, sell me this white rooster. But if he said, sell me this one and that one, it is permitted. And even if he said, sell me this rooster, and he pointed to a white rooster, in the case of a Gentile who is preparing for a feast for his son, or who has a sick person in his house, it is permitted to sell it to him, as it is clear that he wants it for the celebration for his son or the sick person, not for idol worship. The Gemara asked, but isn't it taught in a Mishnah? See, chicken noodle soup was very ancient. So the Gemara asked, but isn't it taught in a Mishnah, 8a, in the case of a Gentile who made a feast for his son, engaging in business is prohibited only on that day and with that man alone. This indicates that in any event, conducting business on that day and with that man is prohibited. So Rav Yitzchak bar Rav Mishar Shisha said, the Braita is speaking about a picnic, that is a social gathering rather than a wedding feast. A mere social gathering does not include the sacrifice of offerings to idols. We learned in the Mishnah, and with regard to all remaining items, without specification, it is permitted to sell them, but with specification, it is prohibited to sell them. The Gemara asks, what is the meaning of without specification? And what is meant by with specification? If we say that without specification is referring to a case when the Gentile says that he wants white wheat without stating the reason he wants it, and with specification is referring to a case where he says that he will use the wheat for idol worship, why is it necessary for the Mishnah to teach this halacha? It does not need to be said that when he asks for the item without specification, one may sell white wheat to him. And it does not need to be said that when he asks for it with specification, one may not sell it to him, as he expressly stated that he will use it for idol worship. Rather, when the Mishnah says that he asks without specification, this is referring to a case where the Gentile says that he wishes to buy wheat, in which case it is permitted to sell to him. If so, the case when he asks with specification is one where he says that he wants white wheat, which is an item used in idol worship. And the Mishnah teaches that it is prohibited to sell him this. By inference, this means that in the case of a rooster referred to early in the Mishnah, even if the Gentile requests without specification, or without saying that he wants a white one, it is not permitted to sell it to him. This conclusion contradicts the opinion of Rabbi Zarah. The Gemara rejects this argument, saying in response that actually without specification is referring to a case where the Gentile says that he wants to purchase white wheat, and with specification is referring to a case where he says that he needs it for idol worship. And as for the objection that this ruling is superfluous, in fact, it is necessary for the Mishnah to state the halacha in a case where he specified that he would use the item for idol worship. The Gemara elaborates, it might enter your mind to say that this man does not really need the wheat for his idol worship. Rather, he is deeply attached to idol worship, and he thought that just as that man, that is he himself, is so attached to it, everyone else is also attached to idol worship. Therefore, he reasoned, I will say this, that I intend to use the item for idol worship, so that they will give it to me. Consequently, it is necessary for the Mishnah to teach us that if he says that he intends to use the item for idol worship, it is prohibited to sell it to him, as he might be telling the truth. Rav Ashi raised a dilemma. If a Gentile asks the merchants, who has a damaged white rooster, what is the halacha with regard to whether it is permitted to sell him an unblemished white rooster? Do we say that from the fact that he says that he wants a damaged rooster, it may be inferred that he does not need it for idol worship, as Gentiles do not sacrifice defective animals, and therefore it is permitted? Or perhaps he is only employing artifice. In other words, he knows that a Jew will not sell him an undamaged white rooster upon request, and as it is unlikely that someone has a damaged white rooster to sell him, he hopes that he will receive an undamaged one. If so, it is prohibited to sell him a white rooster. If you say that this Gentile is employing artifice and is prohibited, in a case where he said, "Who has a white rooster? Who has a white rooster?" and they brought him a black rooster, and he took it, or in a case where they brought him a red one, and he took it, what is the halacha with regard to whether it is permitted to sell him a white rooster? Do we say since they brought him a black rooster and he took it, or they brought him a red one and he took it, evidently he does not need the rooster for idol worship? Or perhaps here too he is employing artifice. The Gemara comments, these dilemmas shall stand unresolved. The Mishnah teaches, the Rabbi Meir says, it is prohibited to sell even a good palm tree and chatzav to Gentiles. Rav Hista said to Avimei, it is learned as a tradition that the tractate Avodah of our father Abraham contained 400 chapters, and we learned only 5 chapters in our tractate Avodah, and we do not even know the meaning of what we are saying. Wow, isn't that? Let me read that again. It is learned as a tradition that Avodah, the tractate Avodah, of our forefather Abraham, so he had information, oral Torah, about idol worship, contained 400 chapters, and we have learned only 5 chapters in our tractate Avodah. So they're talking about like chapters of the Mishnah, like Parakim, and we do not even know the meaning of what we are saying. So Avimei asked him, and what in the Mishnah here poses the difficulty for you? He replied, I do not understand the Mishnah which teaches the following. Rabbi Meir says it is prohibited to sell even a good palm tree, chatzav and naklas to Gentiles. It may be inferred from here that it is a good palm tree that one does not sell to Gentiles, but one may sell a bad palm tree. But didn't we learn in another Mishnah, so 19b, that one may not sell to Gentiles anything that is attached to the ground? Avimei said to him, what is the meaning of a good palm tree? It means the detached fruit of a good palm tree. And similarly, Rav Huna says the Mishnah means fruit of a palm tree. The Gemara explains the meaning of other terms that appear in the Mishnah. Chatzav is a type of date known as kashba. With regard to the meaning of naklas, the Gemara relates, when Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael to Babylonia, he said that Rabbi Hama Bar Yosef said that is referring to koreyate. Abaye said to Rav Dimi, we learned in the Mishnah naklas, and we did not know what it is. And now you have said that it means koreyate, and we do not know what that is either. How have you helped us? Rav Dimi said to him, I have in fact helped you, as when you go there to Eretz Yisrael and say to them naklas, and they do not know what it means, say to them koreyate, and they will know what it is, and they will show it to you. Okay, the Mishnah says, in place where the residents were accustomed to sell small domesticated animals to Gentiles, one may sell them. In a place where they were not accustomed to sell them, one may not sell them. But in every place, one may not sell them large livestock, calves, or fowls, whether these animals are whole or damaged. The sages prohibited these sales lest a Jew's animal perform labor for the Gentile on Shabbat in violation of an explicit Torah prohibition, as explained in the Gemara. Rabbi Yehuda permits the sale of a damaged animal because it is incapable of performing labor, and Ben Betera permits the sale of a horse for riding because riding a horse on Shabbat is not prohibited by Torah law. So the Gemara says, the Mishnah teaches that one may not sell small domesticated animals to Gentiles if it is not the accepted practice. The Gemara infers, that is to say that there is no prohibition involved. Rather, there is a custom not to sell small domesticated animals. Therefore, where the practice is to prohibit the sale, that is what is practiced. And where the practice is to permit the sale, that is what is practiced. And the Gemara raises a contradiction from the Mishnah on 22a. One may not keep an animal in the inns of Gentiles because they are suspected of engaging in bestiality. If so, it should be prohibited in all places to sell animals to Gentiles, as one is thereby placing a stumbling block before the blind. So Rav says the halacha of the Mishnah there, with regard to keeping an animal in a Gentile inn, is contingent on the halacha of the Mishnah here. If it is a place where the sages permitted one to sell animals to Gentiles, it must be that the Gentiles of that location are not suspected of engaging in bestiality. Therefore, the sages permitted one to leave the animal in seclusion with the Gentiles at the inn. Conversely, in a place where the sages prohibited one from leaving the animal in seclusion with the Gentile at the inn, because the Gentiles there are suspected of engaging in bestiality, they also prohibited one from selling animals to Gentiles there. And that is the end of Daf 14. Thanks for watching.